Hi there, Year 7 and Year 8. It's Mr. Palmer again, back again this week for your final lesson of the year in English. Thanks to Mrs. Gotham Ramon for taking the lesson last week while I was in school. And this is your final lesson. So, this is going to be your feedback and improvement from the work you submitted to your teachers last week or the week before. And this is the first video in this lesson in which we're going to look at a WAGOLL and annotate it. So this is for the week beginning Monday the 13th of July 2020. Reminder, this is what we've been doing this term. We've been looking at the big question, how do writers create memorable characters and situations? And our learning path skills have been writer's aims, reading skills and vocabulary. If you need to remind yourself of them, Year 7, pause there. And Year 8, if you need to remind yourself of your skills, please pause there. A reminder that the reading skills, number 5, we looked at with your answers to the questions on the text and the quizzes you've done on it, but really for the purpose of the work we marked last week, looking at writers' aims and challenging you to write about vocabulary. We'll quickly do our final 2 vocabulary words. You should know all this by now. Pause there if you need a reminder of your word classes. And a reminder, you write down all of the classes, you repeat the words aloud after I say them, you write the definition in your own words if you can, and you write an example sentence using the word to answer the question. So our first word is trauma. So I want you to say that after me. Trauma. 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 And a trauma is a severe shock caused by a bad experience. And if you used an adjective, you could say it was a traumatic experience. Or you could say the experience traumatized me, because you could use the verb to traumatize. Or you could say that I looked back on that experience traumatically using the adverb. But we're going to go for the noun on this one. So trauma. Sorry, if you pause there, if you need to write those down, my bad. We'll move on to the next slide now. So trauma. Here's my sentence. He never got over the trauma of being cast as a pig in the school play. So obviously that was a very bad experience for this person, whether any relation to any of your teachers. We won't go into that if that happened to them. But he never got over the trauma of being cast as a pig in a school play. And I've given you this one because it's a difficult word, and this one might be slightly more applicable for you to get your head around it. I want you to think of what sort of experiences might cause trauma for soldiers. So you're going to write, soldiers may suffer from trauma after experiencing, and then you can write some of those things that might cause trauma for them that would be traumatic. And as a challenge, I want you to try and use the adjective traumatic, the verb to traumatize, and the adverb traumatically in your answer. If you were doing that, you'd probably be writing several sentences. So pause there. We'll move on to our final word of the term, which is obliviousness. You have to say that with me. Obliviousness. 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 Obliviousness is the quality of not being aware of something, especially when it's happening around you. Our adjective form of that is oblivious. So you say that people are oblivious to things. Or you could say that someone walked through a room obliviously because they didn't notice something happening to them. You'll notice this is quite relevant to our story because this sums up what the police were like at the end when they enjoyed their leg of murder lamb around the table of Mary Maloney's house. So, obliviousness. I keep on doing this, sorry. If you pause there and write those down. Move on. And obliviousness. My only excuse for letting the dog steal dinner was my obliviousness to the situation. So I had no idea that the dog was stealing dinner. That's what I did. I didn't notice. And I want you to think, I know everyone listening to this is a perfect student who would never do anything like this, but just pretend that you might occasionally miss what a teacher's saying in class. I want you to think what might distract you in class in order to cause obliviousness to what the teacher is saying. So if I wasn't paying attention in class, my obliviousness would probably be caused by, so what might cause you to not be paying attention to what's going on around you? And as a challenge, writing more than one sentence, you might want to use oblivious, the adjective, or the adverb obliviously in your answer. So pause there. Okay, let's go over what we've done previously. We read the story, we did some quotation explosions, you annotated a WAGOLL analytical paragraph, you've written 2 analytical paragraphs about characters, one about Mary Maloney, one about Jack Noonan, which your teacher has marked. You've written 2 analytical paragraphs about theme, which you did last week with Mrs. Gotham Ramond. This week, we're going to be annotating another analytical paragraph. So you're going to have seen so many of them by the end of this term, and you're going to be written loads of them by the end of this term, which means hopefully next year, when we come to analytical paragraphs, you'll say, oh yeah, those are the things we did during lockdown. You're going to identify the strengths in your analytical paragraphs using the feedback your teacher gave you. You're going to identify your areas for improvement, and you're going to write your final improvement paragraph. And this is what we're going to do in the first lesson. We're going to annotate a WAGOLL analytical paragraph. It'll be attached to your homework. It will be called Analytical Paragraph WAGOLL. And if you are able to print it off, then that would be quite a useful thing for you to have, so you can annotate it. But as always, you can make notes in your book if you don't have access to a printer. That's absolutely fine. But if you want to print that, I'd suggest pausing now and going to do it. And before we do anything else, I want you to reread your paragraphs on Mary Maloney and Jack Noonan. You haven't been back to them for a while. Just want you to have a look at them. Take your time over it. Don't just quickly glance at them and go, yeah, they're great. Read every word. Read through them twice. Just have a think about how you did. Maybe make some notes under today's title and date, just saying how you think you did on those paragraphs, because they're the things you're going to be working on today. So pause there, please. Go back and read your work. And we will move on. So the question for the paragraph I've written is there's probably 4 characters you could talk about in Lamb to the Slaughter. I didn't want to focus on Sam because he's in it for such a little amount of time, so I've gone for Patrick. How does Dahl present the character of Patrick in Lamb to the Slaughter? And here's what I wrote. In Lamb to the Slaughter, Roald Dahl shows Patrick to be a selfish man who does not care about his wife's feelings. After telling her that he is leaving her, he says, there needn't be any fuss. This shows that he does not care about the effect that this news has had on Mary, because he expects her to just carry on as if nothing bad has happened. The fact that he refers to how it would affect his job shows he's more worried about that than he is about her. The noun fuss has connotations of something that is unimportant and trivial, which suggests that he thinks any reaction that Mary might have to his news is silly and shows he doesn't care about her. It also connotes a lot of activity and effort, which is ironic as Mary has made a lot of effort for her husband that he has not recognised. And of course, his murder will itself cause a lot of fuss. So I've done a bit more in that one, and we'll break down exactly what I've done, because there's some things for your improvements there as well. So all of these descriptors down here on the bottom of the screen for skill 1 and skill 3 will be used on your whole class feedback sheet from your teacher. So what we're looking for, and they'll either be used as strengths or they'll be used as targets. These are the writing that you can expect to see. There are a few others, but they're quite self-explanatory. So all of these are evidenced in this paragraph here. So for your first task, I want you to pause and I want you to identify where I have done all of these things in that paragraph. I've color coded them so that I can do it on screen, but you could do it by numbering them. You could do it by just labeling and writing where they are on the sheet if you wanted. So I'd like you to pause there and go through that paragraph, identifying where have I discussed the character, where is the statement named the writer and story, where is a clear statement answered the question, where is a quotation given evidence of what was said in the statement, where is a quotation embedded in a sentence, where have inferences been discussed, have inferences been discussed over multiple sentences or clauses, have word types been correctly identified, have connotations of words been discussed, have one word, been discussed, have connotations been explained, have connotations been explained with clear links to the statement in question, and have multiple connotations been explored of a word. This is a new one we haven't done before. So have we thought about other connotations of the word? And this is going to be probably a sort of challenge stretch target for a lot of you. So pause there, please, and annotate that WAGOLL. Thank you. If we go through that together. So I'm going to go through them in order. So I want to see, where have I discussed the character? Well, I've done that there where I've said Patrick. Where have I named the writer and the story in my statement? I've done that right at the start. In Lamb to the Slaughter, Roald Dahl shows Patrick. So I've done those first two. Have I given a clear statement that answers the question? Remember, the question was, what is Patrick like? Yeah, I have. Look, Patrick is a selfish man who does not care about his wife's feelings. So that looks like that statement. I've done all of the three things I need to do in that statement. Okay, so have I given a quotation to give evidence for what was said in the statement? I have. Look, there needn't be any fuss. That's taken from the text. He tells her there needn't be any fuss. Have I embedded it in a sentence? Yeah, we can see there that he said after telling her that he is leaving her, there's a typo there, after telling her that he is leaving her, he tells her there needn't really be any fuss. So I've embedded that quotation into the sentence. Have I discussed inferences? I have. Look, this shows that he does not care about the effect this news has had on Mary because he expects her to just carry on as if nothing bad has happened. So that's one inference explained. Have I done that over multiple sentences or clauses to make sure that I've really fully explained it? Look, there's a second sentence there. The fact that he refers to how it would affect his job shows he is more worried about that than he is about her. So far, all those skill one parts of an analytical paragraph have been done. Notice they weren't exactly in order, but roughly, obviously, all the statement things would be in that first sentence. I've then got a quotation. I've then done the inferences. So let's look at skill 3. Have I correctly identified a word type? I sure have, because I put the noun fuss. Have I discussed, have I said what the connotations of that word are? Yes, because I've said it has connotations of something that is unimportant and trivial. I haven't explained it yet. That would be the first part for me to do. The second part would be to be explaining it. And look, I did that. I said, which suggests that he thinks any reaction that Mary might have to his news is silly. Now look here, have I linked that connotation to the statement in question? Good, yes I have, because I've got a second clause there saying he doesn't care about her. And that's what I said up here, look. He's a selfish man who does not care about his wife's feelings, and I've made that link there. Have I explored multiple connotations? Yes, because I've also said it connects a lot of activity and effort, and that's ironic, because Mary has made a lot of effort for her husband and he has not recognised it. And of course his murder will itself cause a lot of fuss. So that's something we haven't really done before, but that's a new thing where you really get as much analysis out of that word as you can. So I'll pause there for you to catch up on your annotations if you need to, but that was our WAGOLL. And in fact, that's the end of the first part of the lesson. So in the second part of the lesson, you will need your whole class feedback sheet from your teacher, and we will go through and we will identify what your strengths and what your targets are from your own work. So I'll see you then.